Something Mike and I were talking about, I may not get it perfectly right, but today Google's employees are going in front of their shareholders, you know what I'm talking about, because they're tying diversity goals to executive pay. So I'm really curious, what's your opinion on this? Seems like a very smart way to make things change.
I think it's a great idea. Expedia has that. So.
You already have it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
Expedia has targets at the CEO, even chairman level, as gender diversity goals to start with.
Okay.
And we've had them for a few years now. I want to say 4 years at this point. Yeah.
And what have you seen? How
it gets people's attention.
Yeah, you know? I'm sure.
Yeah. Whether and it becomes part of the system. Typically you go into your quarterly business reviews and you're talking about your business, and well, now you have to have a slide on what are you doing about this, and then you ask questions, and suddenly people are more educated, and suddenly you're having a conversation about what happened in the 70s with orchestras, and they put down the carpet, and so if you don't know the story, it's worth reading about, and you're saying, well, do we do that? Well, why don't we do that? How do we do that better? And, oh my God, this is so simple, but we've never thought about it for so many years, and I think that's a good thing.
Either of you want to comment on?
I was going to add, part of our conversation this morning was also about talking loudly about where we're seeing things that are working. And I share with you that our senior leadership team is 60% female and 40% male. And when I look at the health of that executive leadership team compared to 10 years ago, it's way better. Mm-hmm. And you had said, well, how come we don't talk about this stuff more? And I think this is a chance to share with all of you.
Please do.
That is the truth. And I think by sharing more about that, it gives people sort of empowerment to say, yeah, I can do the same thing. And that there's so much research that supports the idea that diversity leads to better. Whether it's engagement or it's profits or it's growth, that diversity leads to better, and diversity comes in many different forms. Mm-hmm. But the idea of diversity is something that we should all be embracing because the data supports it. We can have better outcomes through that.
So why aren't we? Why aren't we embracing it?
I don't know. We were talking about this too. What's the holdup, basically? I don't know if it's inertia. I don't know if it's people not taking it seriously enough. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah.
Isn't it a lot of little things like every other big challenging problem that there's not necessarily one smoking gun, but rather lots of things that you have to change your perspective on, including the way we work, all the way to our unconscious biases, and I think all of those have to flip over, and we, like any other thing, if we're focused on the target, we're going to make those changes happen and discover where we're not understanding the issue and understand it and then fix it.
Mm-hmm. Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that diversity is a term that's being used a lot, and I think the interesting thing is there are very specific ways of making diversity actionable. You mentioned the Google example. Oftentimes those focus around gender diversity and ethnic diversity, which we also have specific goals around, and I think but I think are table stakes. I mean, I think diversity, there's so many aspects of diversity, and I think that it's important to broaden it to include everything from physical disability to age to so many different things that oftentimes those are even areas where it is measurable, but ultimately I think that you mentioned unconscious bias. I think that hopefully I think all this is actually helping us move in a direction where we are becoming more aware. It's becoming more of the public psyche and consciousness to talk about unconscious bias, to talk about how diversity impacts people's lives in a really meaningful way. And I think it's a really complex issue, because I think that when you get out of the main buckets of gender diversity, ethnic diversity, and kind of measurable outcomes, and you start talking about inclusiveness, I think that's where there needs to also be enough space for people to be vulnerable, because we all have unconscious biases. And I think the way that we get through those is feeling comfortable enough to be able to say, that was an unconscious bias, I apologize, or I address that, and try to work through it. And so it's a really complex, big issue. It's a long-winded answer.
It is. It's messy. It's a messy issue, and there's not a lot of forgiveness around messy issues. So it's tough.
Teri, if I can just tack on one last comment, I think part of the challenge is fear. There's a lot of fear. There's fear in trying to talk about this and work on this because you're afraid you're going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That you're going to offend somebody. And I think that fear will hold people back from really embracing new ideas. I can't tell you how many people I've heard who are bright, smart people who say, yeah, I don't have any unconscious bias. No, we all do. It's just a fact of life. But I think that fear of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, it makes people sit tightly with their mouths closed when they need to have their minds open and they have to be willing to put it out there. And I think even for our equity, diversity, inclusion issues at Point B, as we are wrestling with them, we did this thing where we introduced the stories of our people. We collected stories of what people are experiencing in our company, and then we shared them with the firm. And people thought, why are you doing this? This is super scary. We're going to have conversations about what is going on, but I tried to push people to think, well, this is how you get in the perspective. This is how you build empathy. I want to make you uncomfortable because that's how people are feeling. And that way you can have empathy to start to charge forward. And if we're going to jump into that soup together, now maybe we can open up the dialogue a little bit more and get people comfortable. But it's a big part of the challenge is fear. Not wanting to say the wrong thing.
And it's such a CEO imperative.